What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about breast augmentations. I feel like it's not discussed enough, and there's a lot of information out there, and it can be really overwhelming if you are considering a breast augmentation. So we're just going to go over the basics and recovery and all the different types of implants. So the first thing is your type of implant. So you have two types of implants. You have saline and you have silicone. So saline are more watery, a little more unnatural feeling is from what the surgeons say. And then you have silicone, which is what you hear the gummy bear gel implants. These definitely tend to be your more common implants. They were taken off the market, I think it was back in like 2004. They have been put back on the market, and since then they've improved dramatically. So a lot of people go back and forth between saline and silicone because of rupturing. So let's talk a little bit about rupturing. So with saline, if you were to have a rupture, it would just become flat because it's liquid that just spills out. You will just have no breast or whatever breast tissue you have. Versus silicone, if you have a rupture, it is going to be a slow leak. Now, this seems like it would be really concerning, but your body actually forms a capsule around the implant. So if you were to have a rupture, it actually stays right in that area. So you really don't have to worry about a massive infection, becoming septic. Now, there is, of course, crazy things that happen if it's been going on for a long time. I'm not saying this is not a possibility, but this is not the majority of cases if you were to have a rupture. Silicone usually is a little more expensive, usually depending on where you're at, maybe about $1,000 price difference. Okay, so now let's talk about placement. So there is over the muscle and there is under the muscle. Under the muscle is your more go-to. There is pros and cons with both. Let's talk over the muscle. So over the muscle is subfascia. So this is actually placed in front of your pectoral muscle. This is not as common due to the cons of over the muscle. So when your implants are placed over the muscle, you have a higher chance of capillary contracture, which is something that is a pretty big concern with breast implants. You will have to have surgery to fix it. So your chances are higher of getting CC, capillary contracture, when you have over the muscle. You can get it with under the muscle as well, but again, more common with over the muscle. The other thing is you are more common to bottoming out. It is more common to bottom out. So that's actually because your implant now is only being held up by skin versus muscle when it's under the muscle. So you have a higher chance of your implant actually dropping. You usually will get more sagging with over the muscle. Con with over the muscle would be sometimes you can get rippling. Now all implants ripple, again, because you only have skin now between that implant and what you're visually seeing. Sometimes you can visually see those ripples. So now let's talk about the pros. So the pros of over the muscle are you're not cutting into your pectorals. That's huge for somebody who is active. When you do over the muscle, it is a quicker recovery. Usually professional bodybuilders get over the muscle, and this is actually due to posing. So this usually is not due to because they are so active. This is actually specifically some of their posing. If they had under the muscle, their pectoral would actually shift the implant. So for aesthetics reasons, which is a big part of their career, is they do over the muscle. The other thing with over the muscle is they tend to look a little more unnatural. Again, you don't have much covering it other than skin. This can be a pro or con. This may be a look that you would like or a look that you are not going for, but they do tend to look a little more unnatural. All right, so let's talk under the muscle. So under the muscle is just what it sounds like. They cut into your pectorals and it actually goes underneath your muscle. So this recovery is a little bit longer due to cutting into your pectorals. Now the benefits with under the muscle is they do tend to look a little more natural. They usually don't bottom out or not as quickly. You have less chance of sagging, less chance of rippling, less chance of capsular contracture. So cons with over the muscle is the healing is definitely a lot longer. Can get something called lateral displacement, which from my understanding you can actually get with over the muscle, but it is less common. It is definitely more common with under the muscle. So lateral displacement is the implants actually laterally displaced. So this is where you can get some like funky looking breast. So usually that would happen with like excessive chest workouts where you're building up that pectoral muscle and it can start shifting your implants. So that is why a lot of women will actually avoid working out chest after they get breast implants. So when choosing your over the muscle or under the muscle, it's really important to do your research and what is going to work for you. All right, so let's talk sizing. So sizing comes in cc's. So you can do anywhere from 200 cc's all the way till I have heard women have 1600 cc's. So where is your more common range? I would say somewhere between 300 and 500 are typically your more common range. Now, sizing, when you ask somebody how many cc's they have, usually will mean nothing to you because your anatomy is going to change that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So if you already are, let's say, a small b, a small c, so you have breast tissue already, and then somebody like me who had nothing, so I was previously an A, if we both got 400 cc's, your breasts are going to be quite larger because you already started with more breast tissue than I did. So comparing yourself to somebody else is very difficult. Now, if you have very similar stats, you guys started off at the same height, weight, and bra size, then you might be able to just get a better idea. But again, everybody's anatomy is different. If you have more pectoral muscles the way I did, my breasts tend to be a little more wide just because my muscle likes to push them out. So again, anatomy is going to play a huge role in your breast implants. When you go in for your consultation for a breast augmentation, usually they will give you a little bra and different sizers for you to actually try on the implants. So usually that can be kind of fun, picking it out. That is going to be kind of your best option. And even then, I suggest if you are nervous between sizes, size up because they really do end up looking smaller when you choose a size and then when you actually go into surgery and things start to heal. All right, so next, let's talk profiles. So this is where a lot of women are like, I don't even understand what this means. So there is different profiles of your implants, which actually is the shape and projection of your implant. So there is moderate plus, there is high profile, extra high profile. There's probably maybe some more, but those are your most common. So moderate and moderate plus profiles are actually more, think of more like a pancake. So they're a lot flatter, they're a lot wider, and they have less projection. So if you have a very wide chest, these are the implants that you want to go with because it's going to fill out. You don't want to look like you have, torpedoes on your chest. So when you start getting into high profile, extra high profile, they are more projection. So they are a little less wide and they project out a little bit more. So if you have a very narrow frame, these are going to work better for you because you don't want these super wide implants that are going to make you look a lot wider. So a lot of times your surgeon really will choose this. They can give you the option, but a lot of times they'll give you at least their recommendation on your body frame and what's going to work for you. So I actually have two implants to kind of show you guys to get an idea if you have never actually seen them. So this is a 450cc moderate plus profile implant. So this is 450 cc's of the gummy bear gel, and it is moderate plus profile. So as you can see, it's kind of flat and kind of wide, right? So you're not gonna get a lot of projection, but you're gonna get a lot to fill out that chest if you're a lot wider. The cc's, a lot of times, it doesn't make a huge difference in some ranges. So this is actually a 425 cc. So this is a 25 cc difference, and you really can't tell. So usually this is up to your surgeon. No two breasts are actually the same. So they will actually, most of the time, you'll get two different implants. So they do their best to try to even them out, because naturally you're gonna have one breast that is smaller than the other. All right, so we talked a little bit about picking some implants. So now let's talk about recovery. So this was my recovery process, and from what I've heard speaking to other women, theirs have been fairly similar. So usually the first 2 to 3 weeks you are not working out. Usually around week 3 you're able to start with some lower body exercises. Around week 4 you are starting with upper body. If you're a little more active, or depending on your surgeon, a lot of times they'll clear you for mostly full capacity at about a month, if not usually about 6 weeks. So just depending on you and your surgeon, I would expect for full recovery for around 4 to 6 weeks. So let's talk a little bit about pain and what we actually feel during recovery. So I personally have a really high pain tolerance, so I'm not the best to necessarily ask. But I will say, like, the first 2 or 3 days, you have a lot of pressure in your chest. I've heard some women say it almost feels like somebody's just like sitting on your chest. I will say the worst for me is when you are laying down and when you go to sit up, you just almost feel like a bunch of like pressure drop into your chest. So usually I need a minute before I stand up. This usually only lasts the first few days. The other thing is you have to sleep sitting up for... This really depends on you. My first breast augmentation, I sat sitting up for probably 3 weeks. I'm already almost laying flat now, 3 days with a breast implant exchange. So this is really up to you. One of the greatest things I ever purchased for recovery was a pregnancy pillow. I sleep with it every single day. It makes it extremely easy and comfortable to prop yourself up. So I'll actually link that below from Amazon. It was a great price and 100% worth it. Now, that is recovery based on you getting back to normal. So let's talk about dropping and fluffing. So when you get a breast augmentation, your breast will not look the way they are going to. So when you first get them done, they actually sit really high on your collarbone. They're hard as rocks. It is a very odd process, and a lot of times they can look really scary. So there is a weird process called dropping and fluffing. So over time, they actually do drop into their natural position, and then they fluff, is what they call it, and this is when they become softer and less like rocks. Believe it or not, this process can take up to 6 months, and a lot of times up to a year they can still change. I've seen some before and after photos from when they first got them done to a year and in between, and they look completely different. Usually around 3 months, they definitely start to feel a little more natural. Around 6 months, that's pretty close to what they're gonna be, but they still can change till up to a year. So again, don't expect to come out of surgery with these beautiful, natural looking breasts. They're probably gonna look pretty fake for a while. So the last thing is I'll just kind of go over my experience and what I've had. So I actually in January had my first breast augmentation. Those were actually my old implants. So I had 425 and 450 cc's of moderate plus profile. I had no breast tissue to begin with. I was pretty much a flat A. So I had these for about 4 months, and I had a lot of chest muscle that they, I guess, ripped through. And these implants my body just ended up like swallowing them. I looked very flat chested. I had a lot more side boob than I really wanted. All in all, my surgeon and I decided to do an implant exchange. So I actually just had it 3 days ago. So usually when you do an exchange, it's nowhere near as bad as your first breast augmentation. And they usually don't sit as high. So mine are definitely not sitting as high as they did the first time. I just did my breast implant exchange for $600 and $650. Again, still different sizes. So 600, 650 cc's high profile. So this gives me a little bit more of the projection and less of the wideness. Or thinking about a breast augmentation, hopefully this answered a lot of your questions. I will say I have no regrets with any of my breast augmentations. Most women that get it do not. Hopefully this helps, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.